This is Alex, and you're listening to a special episode from BBC American English. Today, something is going to happen that none of us have experienced before. We're not just going to talk about ancient Greece. No, today we're going to live inside it. To help you improve your English and expand your imagination at the same time, I will remind you of several important vocabulary words along the way. Ancient Greece, philosophy, mythology, city-state, democracy, Acropolis. Now, let's begin. I slowly close my eyes. I take a deep breath. The air around me begins to change. It doesn't become colder or warmer, but I feel that space itself is bending around me. When I open my eyes, I am no longer in the recording studio. There are no lights, no walls, no desk. Under my feet, there are tiny pebbles from a beach, and in front of me lies a deep blue sea whose waves gently and rhythmically hit the shore. This is the Aegean Sea. I hear the sound of seagulls, the smell of salt, sun, and history. I am standing in ancient Greece. In front of me, I see white houses, simple but beautiful, with pale roofs and hand-built walls. Between the houses, narrow alleys carry the voices of people, the sound of conversations, the clinking of tools striking clay, the laughter of children. And in the distance, there's a tall hill above the city. On top of that hill stands a magnificent, glowing temple. This is the Acropolis, the heart of Athens, a place where gods, art, and politics live side by side. I walk across the shore. The sunlight rests warmly on my face. I can feel that the sunlight of this land is different. It feels like sunlight meant to illuminate the human mind. I move toward the city. A narrow path between the houses leads me into the marketplace. In the marketplace of Athens, life is flowing. A busy, energetic, thoughtful life. I hear merchants shouting. The smell of fresh bread and olives fills the air. Vendors of wine, grapes, fabrics, olive oil, all calling out loudly to attract customers. Here, I want to remind you of an important word. Agora, the central square or marketplace where people gather. The Agora is the center of everything. People don't just buy goods, they debate right in the middle of the street. Here, people consume debates the way others consume food. Debates about the universe, the gods, ethics, law, love, politics, power. Imagine several young men sitting around a philosopher, on the ground, on stone, on anything they can find. The philosopher speaks calmly about virtue. He raises his hands, sometimes laughs, sometimes falls silent. I stop beside them to listen. A man's voice says, "If justice does not exist, the city will collapse." This tone, this sentence, this belief in reason, this is the soul of ancient Greece. I continue walking. I climb upward and reach the foot of the Acropolis. Tall white steps stretch out in front of me, steps carved by hand thousands of years ago. Every step carries the footprint of history. Every stone, every line, every shadow feels like it holds a memory. As I climb higher, the sound of my footsteps mixes with the wind. The wind comes from the Aegean Sea, cool and gentle, but at the same time, it carries a whisper that feels like the voice of the past. When I reach the top, a massive temple stands before me, even more enormous from up close. Tall columns, giant stones, flawless architecture. This is the Parthenon, a place dedicated to the goddess Athena. I take a deep breath. Right now, I'm standing where Socrates, Plato, Aristotle all once stood. What a strange, overwhelming feeling. Let me remind you of a few important words here. Parthenon, Athena, wisdom, virtue. In front of the temple, the city of Athens spreads beneath my feet. The white rooftops glow like waves frozen in the sunlight. The Agora is crowded, and from far away, I can still hear the endless debates of the people. I feel that ancient Greece is not just a historical place. It has a rhythm, a breath, a soul. Everything here is alive, even the stones. And this is just the first part of our journey. A journey into the world of myths, heroes, philosophers, battles, art, and the human mind. My friends, in the next part, we will enter the heart of mythology, a place where gods walk, heroes fight, and stories flow like rivers.
As I walk down from the Acropolis, my mind is still filled with the astonishing images I have just left behind. The massive temple columns, the wind of the Aegean Sea, the footsteps of history. But something inside me pulls me toward a place beyond history, to a realm where truth and imagination are woven together. At this moment, my journey is no longer just inside the streets of Athens. I feel that I have entered a boundary that leads to the world of myths. Before I go further, here are a few important words. Mythology, pantheon, Olympus, heroic tales, oracle. I move away from the city. The alleys grow quieter, leaving only the sound of the wind. I step into a wide plain where short grass sways in the breeze and distant mountains stand like guardians of time. I sit on a large stone, close my eyes, and try to feel the myths, not just read them. In that very moment, a voice forms in my mind, not human, not describable, a voice that seems to rise from the earth itself. Do you wish to know us? I open my eyes. No one is there, only wind and silence. The same voice again. No myth is just a story. Every myth is a truth dressed in imagination. I stand up without meaning to. I take a step forward. Suddenly, the world around me changes.
Colors become brighter, the air warmer, the light stronger. When I turn, I find myself facing a massive mountain whose peak is lost in golden mist. Mount Olympus, home of the gods. Important words for this part. Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Apollo, Athena. A powerful wind blows, a wind that seems to carry messages from thousands of years ago. I place my feet on the cold stones of the mountain and begin to climb. I feel that this path is not only outer, it is an inner journey as well. A journey into the heart of the human unconscious. A voice forms within the wind, something between thunder, light, and presence. The sky opens a small crack. A shining radiance in the shape of a human, half visible, half imagined, appears before me. It is neither fully seen nor fully heard, yet its presence is undeniably real. You have come to carry our voice to those who will live after you, so listen and narrate what you see.
The light around it glows brighter. It continues. We, the gods of Greece, are symbols of the forces of nature. Zeus is thunder. Poseidon, the rage of the sea. Athena, the wisdom that takes root in the human mind. Apollo, light and art. Heracles, the courage of humans against destiny. Important words for this part: strength, wisdom, courage, destiny, legend. The light slowly fades, but its voice remains in my mind. Myths were not created to frighten or entertain. Myths are the way humans understand themselves. The mist disappears, and I find myself again in the same plane as before. But something inside me has changed. I know now that ancient Greece is not just a land. It is a gateway between human beings and legend, between history and myth, between reality and a dream. And this is only the second part of our journey.
Part 3. The air over the plain has grown quiet, but inside me, a storm is raging. After encountering the voice of the gods, something pulls me toward another part of Greece, a part that is neither in the mountains nor in the temples, but in the heart of human stories, a place where heroes walked and wars were fought that changed the course of history. Before I continue, here are some important words: hero, epic, destiny, warriors, legacy. I walk slowly, but this time I feel the ground beneath me is not just a plain. It feels like the beating heart of history itself. The wind carries an earthy scent, a mixture of past, blood, and honor. I close my eyes. When I open them again, I find myself in a completely different place. The battlefield of Troy. A vast shore stretches before me, full of war tents, armor, arrows, wooden and bronze shields. Voices echo through the air, the neighing of horses, the shouts of commanders, the heavy footsteps of warriors. Among these sounds, names rise, names pulled straight out of history: Achilles, Hector, Odysseus. Important words for this scene: Achilles, Hector, Odysseus, Troy, battlefield. A young soldier sits beside a fire, polishing his armor. I walk past him, but I feel his gaze. His eyes are full of courage, yet behind them lies a human worry found in every war: the fear of whether he will survive tomorrow. For a moment, he looks directly at me, as if he sees me. He smiles faintly, a smile that holds both hope and acceptance of fate.
I pass by the general's tents. I hear the sound of tactical discussions: how to attack, how to arrange the ranks, how to defend. But suddenly, a strange, heavy silence falls over the western side of the battlefield. All eyes turn in one direction. Achilles enters the field. Tall, golden-haired, wearing armor that gleams under the sun. He doesn't walk. He seems to glide over the ground. Every step of his screams power and pride. I stand just a few steps away from him, but he does not look at me. He sees only his enemy, his destiny. Across the field, Hector appears, a calm face, but full of resolve. He has come not for glory, not for the joy of battle, but to defend his home. In absolute silence, the two heroes stand face to face. The wind moves their hair. This is the moment people have written about for thousands of years. I can hear my own heartbeat. The battle begins. Rapid movements, The clash of shields, the strike of swords, the sound of metal, dust rising beneath their feet. The fight feels so real, it seems I am standing between them. But in the final moment, the strike we all know comes. Hector falls. Achilles stands above him, but there is no victory in his eyes, only sorrow and rage. In that moment, I understand. Even heroes are prisoners of human emotions. The shore fades. The sounds quiet down. When I open my eyes again, I am in another place. Sparta, the land of warriors. Important words. Sparta. Discipline. Training. Warrior code. Endurance.
Sparta is nothing like Athens. In Athens, culture and philosophy flow, but in Sparta, strength, order, and warriorhood rule everything. Children begin training at the age of 7. Harsh exercises, lack of food, exhausting trials. In every face I see, there is a sign of endurance. I walk through the training field. The sound of wooden weapons clashing, the shouts of instructors, the heavy breathing of young trainees, everything is organized. In Sparta, even the wind seems to blow with discipline. In my ear, a voice echoes, the voice of a Spartan instructor. If you are weak, you lose. If you are strong, you win. But if you are wise, you become immortal. This sentence stops me. I realize Sparta is not only about physical strength, it is about a spirit that does not break under hardship. Suddenly, the light of the environment changes. Sparta fades. I find myself somewhere between the two worlds, between Athens' art and Sparta's power. I whisper to myself, ancient Greece was not just a civilization. It was a combination of wisdom, art, strength, myth, war, and humanity. And this is only the beginning of Part 3. Part 4 will lead us into the era of philosophers in the birth of democracy, a time when the human mind changed forever.
When I leave Sparta, I feel that something inside me has changed. Strength, order, discipline, willpower, all of these rotate in my mind. But now it is time to go to a place ruled by a different power, the power of thought. A place where the sword did not rule, but words, reason, and thinking held authority. A place called Athens. Important words: democracy, philosophy, debate, academy, reason. I step into Athens. The sunlight is softer. The wind blows more gently. In the air, there is a strange sense of conversation, freedom, and the search for truth. As I walk, I pass through a large marketplace full of people: merchants, artists, poets, students, wise elders. Here, everyone talks, not to argue, not to shout, but to understand. I look at the crowd, and a sentence forms in my mind. This is the home of thought. In one corner of the Agora, Athens' central square, a crowd has gathered around a man with a calm face but eyes full of the power of words. Socrates. Important words: Socrates, questioning, wisdom, method.
Step closer. It seems he is not criticizing anyone. He simply asks questions. Questions expressed gently, yet their depth is like the endless waters of the sea. He asks a young man, "Tell me, what is courage?" The young man answers,
Socrates smiles, not because the answer is correct, but because the answer is only the beginning of a mental journey. Then Socrates says, "Why do you think it is correct? If this is true, then what about that?" Watching this scene, I feel something opening in my mind. In Athens, truth is not a destination, it is a path. Slowly, I move away from the crowd. My path leads toward a school near the city, a place where Socrates' student, a philosopher with a structured and logical mind, teaches. Plato. Important words. Plato. Ideal forms. Academy. Justice. Plato's academy is not just a building. I feel as if I'm entering a world of thought. Students sit together and Plato explains the world of forms. He says, "We see shadows, but truth lies beyond the shadows." When I hear this, the image of Plato's cave forms in my mind, a story that remains inspiring even thousands of years later. But my journey is not over yet. I walk toward another man whose thinking is more practical, precise, and scientific. Aristotle. Important words. Aristotle. Logic. Science. Observation.
He was Plato's student, but his path is different. If Plato spoke of the world of ideas, Aristotle spoke of the real world, of things that could be seen, touched, measured. He sits among his students and talks about nature, politics, ethics, animals, and stars. He categorizes the world, creates rules, and shapes the foundations of science. Quietly, I whisper to myself, these were not just philosophers, they were the engineers of the human mind. But Athens was not only the home of philosophy. Here, democracy was also born. Important words. Democracy, citizens, assembly, voting. I walk toward the gathering place of citizens, the place where political decisions were made. People discuss, argue, reason, and vote. Here, the government is in the hands of the people. For a moment, I imagine, if I were an ordinary Greek citizen, I could express my opinion here about war, taxes, laws, and the future of my country. This feeling is powerful, a feeling that gives a person value and identity. Athens, with all its debates and disagreements, was a place where voices were heard. The sun slowly set, but I continue walking through Athens. In the streets, the sound of lyre music, the smell of fresh bread, the applause of spectators in the theater, everything is alive. I climb a hill where an enormous, magnificent, symbolic structure stands. The Parthenon. Important words. Parthenon. Architecture. Goddess Athena. Cultural heritage. When I reach the top of the steps, a marble floor shines under my feet. The columns are tall, but the sense of pride and calm they convey is even taller. Here lies the symbol of Athens' spirit, the spirit of wisdom, art, order, and beauty. I stand for a long time and simply look at the architecture, the sky, the history. Inside myself, I say, Greece is not just history. Greece is the story of humanity on its journey to understand the world. And this is the end of part 4. But not the end of the journey. Part 5 will take us to the greatest ruler of Greece, a young man who changed the world by the age of 32.
Part 5. When I walk down from the Parthenon, I feel that my journey in Athens is complete. My mind is full of philosophy, art, and democracy. But deep inside, I know that one important chapter still remains. A chapter that, without experiencing it, my journey through ancient Greece would not be whole. A chapter about a young man who became king at 20, conquered the world by 30, and at the age of 32, vanished at the height of his power. Alexander the Great. Important words: Alexander the Great, conquest, empire, strategy, legacy. The sky suddenly becomes brighter. The light is intense, like the dawn of a great victory. When I open my eyes, I find myself in a city echoing with the sound of horses' hooves, a city where a legend begins. Pella, the birthplace of Alexander. A young boy runs across the training ground. His hair is light, his eyes full of determination. From the very first glance, something shines within him, something like the spark of a star. Beside the training field stands a powerful man, Philip II, Alexander's father and one of Macedonia's greatest rulers. He watches his son with great focus, not with the pride of a father, but with the gaze of a man who knows the future of the world lies in this boy's hands.
Alexander was never an ordinary youth. He grew up surrounded by war, politics, and leadership. But above all, he had a teacher who transformed his mind, a man named Aristotle. Important words: tutor, knowledge, education, wisdom. In a small but bright room, Alexander sits beside his teacher and listens attentively. Aristotle speaks to him about ethics, nature, politics, art, even linguistics. But the most important thing he teaches Alexander is the world is not only a battlefield. The world is a stage for understanding. This sentence shapes Alexander's future. Time passes. Alexander grows older. But suddenly, a tragic scene takes place. Philip II is assassinated. Alexander becomes king at the age of 20. It is hard to imagine this moment. A young man, not even old enough to command a major army in most nations, must now rule an entire kingdom. But he is ready. There is something in his eyes that says, "It is time for the world to hear my name." Alexander marches south. Greece at that time was not united. The cities were independent, and many of them did not want to be under Macedonian rule. But Alexander, with lightning speed, with unbelievable force, with strategies that are still taught at universities today, unites all of Greece. Important words: unity, campaign, tactics, alliance. And once Greece stands behind him, Alexander decides to confront the greatest empire of that time, the Persian Empire. Suddenly, I find myself beside the river Granicus. The wind blows fiercely. The ground is covered in dust. The Persian army stands on one side of the river, and Alexander stands on the other. His powerful black horse, Bucephalus, snorts beneath him. He does not hesitate. He enters the river with full force. His soldiers shout, hands rise, swords shine in the air. The battle begins. This is his first great encounter with Persia. The first, but not the last. After the victory, Alexander advances toward the heart of the Persian Empire. At Issus, at Gaugamela, in battles whose names still shake history. Important words: Battle of Issus, Battle of Gaugamela, Persian Empire, Darius III. At Issus, Alexander faces Darius III for the first time. The scene is breathtaking. Two kings, two worlds, two futures standing against each other. At Gaugamela, with far fewer troops, but with extraordinary precision and flawless strategy, Alexander defeats a massive imperial army.
Standing in the middle of these scenes, I whisper to myself,
This man is not just a warrior. This man is a genius. Alexander enters Babylon. The magnificence of the city surprises him. Then he marches into Persepolis, a city that symbolized the power of the Persian Empire. There, an event occurs that has been debated by historians for thousands of years: the burning of Persepolis. Was it his decision, or did it happen in the midst of celebrations and excitement? No one knows. But Alexander feels something inside him changing. He is no longer just a conqueror. He begins to build an empire. He marches east, through mountains, deserts, unfamiliar lands. He reaches India. By the river Hyphasis, as he looks at India's war elephants, he smiles for a moment, perhaps thinking, "This world is so vast." But his soldiers are exhausted. They have fought for years. Eventually, Alexander is forced to turn back. When he returns to Babylon, he suddenly becomes ill. Nature at times stops even the greatest of men. At the age of 32, at the height of power, at the height of glory, he closes his eyes, and the world goes silent for a moment. I stand beside the Euphrates River. The warm Babylonian wind brushes against my face. Inside myself, I say, Alexander did not only conquer the world, he conquered the human mind. He showed that dreams, even the wildest ones, can change the world. Final important words: ambition, courage, vision, history, immortality. Now my journey through ancient Greece ends. From myth to philosophy, from democracy to power, from art to empire. In this journey I learned, when humans seek to understand the world, they create history. And when they seek to change the world, they become legends. This is the end of part 5. Goodbye.